Hello, and welcome to Soft Histories. I'm so glad you're here. Whether your thoughts are tangled from a long, noisy day, or you're simply seeking a quiet moment before sleep. Tonight, we'll take a slow walk through the subtle undercurrents of human behavior, the ones that move just beneath the surface, quietly shaping every choice, glance, and connection. We'll gently untangle the hidden stories of the subconscious, the soft signals most people never notice, but that governs so much of what we feel. Nothing loud, nothing rushed, just you, your breath, and a river of soft scientific wonder. Where are you listening from tonight, wherever that is? I'm grateful to be there with you. If this space brings you peace, consider subscribing it. Helps more wandering minds find their way here. Now, take a deep breath in, slowly exhale, and let's begin our quiet journey into the subconscious signals you were never meant to notice. There is a moment so quiet, so brief, that it often slips through awareness like a thread of mist. It is the breath before the thought, a pause, not one you choose, but one your body takes for you, long before you decide to speak, to move, to notice. There is a soft activation in your brain, not the thunder of conscious will, but the quiet flicker of something older, something deeper. Scientists call it the readiness potential. It's the slow electrical buildup in your motor cortex, the region of the brain responsible for movement. Remarkably, this signal begins before you are even aware of your intention, before you reach for a glass, scratch an itch, or open your mouth to speak. This quiet wave of activity has already begun to rise, like a tide approaching shore. It's silent at first, invisible, unless you know where to look. In a famous series of experiments by neuroscientist Benjamin Libet, participants were asked to flex their wrists at a time of their choosing, and to report the exact moment they decided to move. What Libet discovered was quietly revolutionary. The brain began preparing for the movement nearly half a second before the participants believed they had made the choice. A fraction of time, a whisper, but a whisper that changes everything. What does it mean to act before you decide? Are we puppets of our own biology, following orders delivered before awareness arrives? Perhaps, or perhaps we are symphonies, composed not by a single conductor, but by an orchestra of layered intentions, conscious and unconscious, ancient and new. The breath before the thought is not betrayal, it is collaboration. Your conscious mind is not the origin, but the translator, the story catcher. Imagine your life as a forest. Thoughts are the birdsong, vibrant, clear, full of color. But beneath the birdsong is the wind in the trees, the shifting of roots, the creaking of old bark. These are the subconscious stirrings. You don't always hear them, but they shape the forest's rhythm. The readiness potential is the rustling beneath the surface, a neural wind rising before the sound. But even wind follows patterns. Why does your brain begin to act before you decide? It's not randomness, it's prediction. Your subconscious mind is a relentless forecaster, drawing on memory, emotion, and context. It constantly sketches likely futures. Before your conscious mind weighs in, your subconscious has already begun to navigate toward what it expects you'll want or need. Often, it's right, and so we begin here not with action, but with the breath that comes before it, the twitch of a neuron, the pulse of possibility. In that quiet spark, there is a kind of truth, not loud or absolute, but soft and suggestive. Your choices are not born from nowhere. They rise from beneath like a lily blooming from mud, drawn upward by light it doesn't yet see. You are not just a thinker. You are a feeler, a guesser, a listener to the whispering roots of your own experience. The breath before the thought is not a secret to fear. It is a signal to welcome, a gentle reminder that much of who you are unfolds in silence, in softness, in the stillness before the story begins. Let that comfort you. Not every choice needs to be perfect. Not every action needs to be planned. Your subconscious is always preparing a path. Sometimes all you need to do is follow the breath. Before your gaze lands with intention, before you decide to look, your eyes have already begun their quiet search. They dart and drift in small, involuntary motions known as saccades, scanning the world in pulses of attention that happen so fast, you almost never feel them. Like a soft current beneath a still pond, these movements reveal the subconscious workings of your perception before your conscious mind catches up. Even in darkness, even with eyes closed, there is activity. Your visual system is rarely at rest. Evolution has made it so. Long before we lived in cities of light, we were creatures of the open plain, scanning shadows for danger, movement, and meaning. That instinct remains. In every moment, your eyes are asking the world, is this safe? Is this beautiful? Is this important? And often, they answer before you can. There's a phenomenon known as attentional blink, a brief period during which your brain literally misses something it has seen, simply because too much arrived too quickly. During these blinks, your eyes may detect something, like a flash of light or a facial expression, but your conscious awareness doesn't register it. The information was captured, just not noticed. Your brain filed it under quiet importance, possibly to resurface later in a dream, a gut feeling, or a mysterious sense of déjà vu. Have you ever felt drawn to someone across a room before you knew why, or suddenly sensed something was wrong before you could name the reason? Your eyes often deliver those clues in microsecond flashes, a tilt of the head, a glimmer of fear in a stranger's eyes, or a shape that doesn't quite belong in the background. The subconscious drinks in these fragments and stitches them into intuitive hunches, like a painter working behind a veil. Your visual mind layers brush strokes you don't see until the picture begins to feel real. And here's something even more haunting in studies involving eye tracking technology. People's gazes consistently fixate on emotionally charged stimuli, fearful faces, dangerous animals, expressions of anger faster than on neutral or pleasant ones. You don't choose this. It chooses you. Your eyes rush toward the things that threaten or fascinate, often long before you even know they're there. This isn't weakness, it's survival, but it's also art. Think of your eyes not as cameras, but as composers. They don't simply record the world, they interpret it, rearrange it, emphasize one note while softening another. Even in silence, even in stillness, they are asking and answering hundreds of questions. What do I trust? What do I love? What do I fear? You might believe you look at something because it draws your attention, but more often, you attend to it because some part of you already knows it matters. We believe our eyes follow our thoughts, but often, our thoughts are pulled along by where our eyes have already gone. There's a quiet poetry in that, a hidden intelligence in the way we visually dance with the world moving towards stories before we even know we're reading them. It's why art moves us without explanation, why a certain landscape brings tears, why a stranger's expression haunts us. The eye is not just an organ of sight, it's a portal of intuition. And so, next time your gaze drifts to something without clear reason, pause. Ask what your deeper mind may have seen, not in logic, but in symbol, in shape, in light. What truth flickered past the edge of conscious vision? The eyes see before you look. Trust them sometimes. They are not only tools of observation, they are messengers of the subconscious, scanning the world for beauty, for danger, for belonging, long before the rest of you catches up. You've felt it before, though perhaps not in words, that quiet pull towards someone across a room, that strange comfort in another's presence, the unspoken ease that settles into the air between two people. These moments often seem like magic or mystery, but beneath them, something biological is stirring, a rhythm shared, a secret alignment of bodies. Your heart, ever faithful, is listening, and sometimes it synchronizes. It's called physiological synchrony, and it is one of the most delicate dances your body performs, often with strangers. In the presence of another person, particularly when you feel connected, your heartbeat begins to subtly match theirs. The breath slows, the blood flows more in tune, and bodies start to mirror one another, not through thought, but through presence. It's not just a metaphor, it's measurable. In moments of deep conversation, eye contact, or even shared silence, studies have shown that our heart rates and breathing patterns begin to converge. Not dramatically, not even perceptibly, but like two streams weaving into one. The pulses gradually find rhythm. This happens in lovers, in best friends, in strangers sitting side by side, quietly watching the same film. Why does this happen? Partly because your nervous system is wired for attunement. The vagus nerve, a long, wandering thread of connection between brain and body, is especially sensitive to social cues. It regulates your heart rate, your breath, even your emotional tone. And when you feel safe, seen, or understood, the vagus gently downshifts the body into a calmer rhythm, an invitation for synchrony to unfold. It's not just hearts that echo each other, skin conductance does, too. Tiny changes in sweat, imperceptible to our own senses, begin to mirror between people who are emotionally connected. It's as if the body is having a conversation all its own, beneath the words, beneath awareness. Children do this with caregivers almost instinctively. Their tiny hearts and tiny lungs sync to the ones who hold them. The rhythm tells them you are safe, you are loved, you are not alone. That pattern persists into adulthood, though we may not notice it. It explains why a deep hug can regulate panic, why sitting quietly with someone in grief can soften the sharpest sorrow, why being truly listened to feels like a balm on the nervous system. But there's something stranger still. This synchrony can happen even in conflict. During heated arguments, couples often fall into physiological resonance, mirroring each other's tension, rapid breath, and rising heartbeat. Their bodies are locked in tandem, even when their minds are in turmoil. It's not always peaceful, but it's always a connection. Two instruments, playing in discord, are still playing together. And what of strangers? Could your heart be syncing with someone next to you on the train, or across the room in a cafe? Perhaps there's evidence to suggest that even subtle visual cues, a shared glance, a mirrored posture, are enough to trigger this bodily resonance. We are social creatures, built not only to observe one another, but to become one another, if only for a moment. So the next time you feel unusually comforted by someone's presence, or overwhelmed in a crowded space for reasons you can't explain, consider that it may not be your mind alone responding. Your heart may be in quiet conversation, sharing its tempo with another. This, too, is a subconscious signal, a soft symphony beneath the silence. You are not alone even when you think you are. You are vibrating with others, like tuning forks in invisible harmony. And sometimes, your body says yes before your voice ever can. There is a moment so fleeting, so small, when your face changes shape without permission. A twitch in the cheek, a flicker around the eyes. It happens not because you chose to express something, but because someone else did. Their emotion echoed through you, silently, like a shadow passing across a window. This is facial mimicry, and it is one of the most intimate ways our subconscious communicates. When you see a smile, your own facial muscles begin to shift into a smile, even if just for a fraction of a second. See someone grimace in pain, and the same muscles might tighten in your own face. This mimicry is often invisible to others and unnoticed by you, but your body records it, and so does your brain. These micro-movements form part of what scientists call emotional contagion, the way feelings can spread through subtle, unconscious channels, like mist drifting between open windows. We think of emotions as internal, private experiences, but they are also viral. The sorrow in someone's eyes, the warmth in their laughter. These don't just sit inside them. They travel. Your nervous system, always listening, picks up on these emotional signals and responds in kind. This is empathy in its most physical form. Not a thought, but a reflex. Facial mimicry is deeply wired. Newborn babies, barely hours old, will imitate expressions they see sticking out their tongues, widening their eyes, furrowing tiny brows. They don't understand what these gestures mean, not in any cognitive way, but their bodies already know the dance. It is as if we are born with a face-shaped key, always looking for locks that match. And there's a reason for this. When you mimic an expression, Even subtly, your brain begins to feel what that expression represents. Smile slightly, and your mood lifts, furrow your brow, and tension follows. This is known as the facial feedback hypothesis, the idea that expression shapes emotion as much as emotion shapes expression. You do not merely show how you feel what you show. Imagine walking into a room where someone is quietly crying. They don't speak. You don't know their story, but something in their expression touches you and your own eyes begin to fill. Why? Because their grief reached you not through words, but through mirrored tension in the muscles around the eyes, the quiver of a lip, the soft collapse of posture. Their sorrow became a shape your body recognized and echoed like a piano responding to another's song. But this mimicry isn't always equal. Some people are more sensitive to it, more porous. They absorb emotional tones easily, even involuntarily. These are often the deeply empathetic, the intuitive, the emotionally open. Their faces are like still water. Every ripple around them creates a reflection. For these people, emotional contagion can be a gift or a weight. There's a beauty in this, though. When someone smiles at you and you smile back without thinking, that moment binds you. It creates a loop, a soft feedback of mutual recognition, a nonverbal whisper, I see you, I feel you, I am with you. In crowds, this becomes exponential. A single laugh can trigger dozens more. One panic-stricken glance can set off a wave of unease. Emotions, like sparks, can leap from face to face. And perhaps this is why loneliness feels so heavy, not simply because we are alone in space, but because our facial echoes go unanswered. We smile, and no smile returns. We frown, and the world remains still. The loop is broken, the mimicry fades, and the body begins to forget the rhythm of shared feeling. But the good news is this: it only takes one face to begin again, one warm expression to stir your own, one glance of compassion to unlock the mirrored pulse beneath your skin. The world is always speaking through faces. Even now, as you listen, your own may be shifting ever so slightly in response to a memory, an imagined touch, the ghost of a smile you once knew. Let it. Your face is a mirror, not of vanity, but of connection, a sacred surface through which feelings leap and linger. You are not just watching emotions, you are becoming them. And that, too, is a quiet kind of magic. We often think of hands as tools, instruments of action, precision, and creation. But they are also deeply emotional storytellers. Before a word is spoken, the fingers may twitch. Before a sentence forms, a hand may rise. And often, without us realizing it, our hands whisper truths our mouths won't say. Watch someone deep in thought, and you'll likely notice the fingers begin a soft choreography, tapping, fidgeting, tracing invisible lines across a surface. These gestures are not random. They are tiny expressions of the mind's hidden dialogue. Scientists call them self-adapters, small movements that arise when we're processing something internal: stress, curiosity, confusion, even excitement. A finger tap can be a question, a clenched fist, a quiet alarm, a gentle brush of the skin, a longing unspoken. What's fascinating is that these movements often happen outside of conscious control. We don't plan to tap our fingers or rub our temples. The body simply does it, like a reflex that leaks emotion into the air. Your hands, in this way, become translators of the subconscious, revealing what the voice cannot, or will not, admit. And others notice, even if they don't realize it. Subconsciously, we read these hand signals all the time. A fluttering gesture might betray nervousness. A slow, open palm might suggest honesty. A restless picking at the skin can signal discomfort or deep thought. We absorb these signs not with logic, but with intuition. We feel what someone's hands are saying before we understand it. Even hand placement plays a role. A hand to the chest often signals sincerity, even when no words are spoken. Fingers interlaced in the lap can reflect restraint or reservation. Hands hidden in pockets might suggest unease or retreat. When someone speaks and their gestures align with their words, palms open as they say, "I trust you." For instance, we tend to believe them more. When gestures and words misalign, the subconscious raises its eyebrows. Something doesn't feel right. Then there are the fingers themselves. They are among the most sensitive parts of the human body, rich with nerve endings. This sensitivity isn't just physical, it's emotional. We use our fingers to soothe ourselves. A rub of the thumb against the palm, the absent-minded twist of a ring, the gentle stroke of a fabric's edge, these are private lullabies, rituals the hands perform when the heart needs calming. And yet, fingers also betray what lies beneath desire. In studies of attraction, participants shown images of romantic interests exhibited small, involuntary finger movements, subtle stroking motions, fingertip shifts, tiny presses against the table. These gestures often occurred before any conscious acknowledgement of interest. The fingers knew first. They always do. Touch is language. 2. In some cultures, a soft tap of the fingers on a friend's arm is an apology. In others, it's affection. But universally, touch from the fingertips carries weight. A fleeting brush on the back of the hand can awaken memory, longing, even trust. We don't always recognize it in the moment, but the skin remembers. What's perhaps most poetic is that we also talk to ourselves through our fingers. Think of how often people trace patterns in sand, water, or dust when they're thinking. These are not idle acts. They are a kind of silent dialogue, a feedback loop between body and mind. The hand performs, the brain listens. So, the next time your fingers begin to move without clear reason, tapping, tracing, fidgeting, pause for a moment. What might they be trying to say? What part of you is speaking through them? Gently, below the noise of language. The hands don't just act, they reveal. They are instruments of intention, yes, but also of intuition. They play the mind's music before the mind knows its own tune. And if you listen closely, you may just hear your truth tapping softly from within. There are certain scents that seem to drift straight into the soul. A childhood blanket, freshly baked bread, the perfume of someone long gone. In a single breath, you are no longer here, you are back there. The smell does not pass through thought. It bypasses logic, skips language, and opens a door in the mind that nothing else can. That's because the olfactory system, your sense of smell, is unlike any other sensory system in your body. While sight and sound are processed through relay stations in the brain, smell takes a direct path. When you inhale, airborne molecules bind to receptors in your nose, which then send signals straight to the olfactory bulb, nestled deep in the brain. And from there, these signals travel directly to two ancient regions, the amygdala, where emotions live, and the hippocampus, the keeper of memory. This shortcut means that smell is more intimately tied to emotion and memory than any other sense. It's why the scent of a particular flower can bring tears without warning, or why the smell of sun-warmed grass on a summer day can make you feel 8 years old again. The brain doesn't just remember the scent, it relives the feeling that was once wrapped around it. This is not just nostalgia, it's neural truth. These scents become emotional bookmarks, filed away in the deepest parts of your inner library. And unlike visual memories, which often fade or distort over time, olfactory memories remain strangely intact, clear, immediate, alive. But smell isn't only about memory, it's also about desire. Pheromones, though still debated in humans, are one example. These are chemical signals released by the body that may influence attraction, emotion, even behavior, all without conscious detection. Some studies have shown that people can detect subtle differences in body odor and that these differences influence mate selection, particularly in terms of genetic compatibility. You might feel drawn to someone without knowing why, and it could be your nose that made the first decision. Even everyday scents influence how we behave. The smell of vanilla can increase feelings of trust. Lavender can ease anxiety. Citrus can heighten alertness. Our environments are constantly scenting us, shaping our moods and behaviors in ways we don't perceive. The subconscious is always breathing in. And smell, more than any other sense, is private. You cannot share a smell through a screen. It cannot be perfectly described. It must be experienced. That gives it a sacred intimacy. To smell something is to draw it into yourself. To take it in completely, invisibly. In this way, scent becomes not just information, but connection. Consider how we use fragrance to shape identity. The perfume you wear, the detergent on your clothes, the shampoo in your hair. These are not random choices. They are scented signatures, olfactory armor. They tell a silent story. This is who I am. This is how I wish to be remembered. And that memory lingers. The smell of someone who once loved you can remain in a room long after they've left and evoke their presence more strongly than any photograph or letter ever could. The subconscious does not forget scent. It carries it like a vessel through time. So when you inhale something that makes your heart ache, or flutter, or soften, don't dismiss it. That scent has tapped a wellspring beneath your thoughts. It has found the back door to your inner world and stepped inside, gently, instantly, deeply. And if you find yourself moved by something you can't see, or touched by a wave of feeling without knowing why, pause, breathe. Ask what your nose may have noticed, what memory may have stirred beneath the threshold of awareness. Because sometimes, the truths we're not supposed to know are hiding in the air itself, invisible, ancient, and as intimate as breath. Somewhere in the folds of your brain, there is a strange kind of echo, not a sound, but a pattern, a silent reflection of someone else's experience unfolding inside your own mind. When you watch another person act, feel, or move, your brain often reacts as if you were doing the same. This is the hidden work of mirror neurons, a network of cells quietly imitating the world around you, not for performance, but for understanding. Discovered in the early 1990s in the brains of monkeys, mirror neurons fired not only when a monkey performed an action such as grasping a peanut, but also when it merely watched someone else do the same. The brain didn't distinguish between doing and observing. It mirrored, reflected, participated. This finding sent ripples through neuroscience. What if human empathy, imitation, even culture itself, were rooted in this subconscious reflection? Could the same mechanism that lets us learn by watching also allow us to feel by watching? The answer, it seems, is yes. When you see someone smile, your mirror neurons help your brain generate a similar experience. Your facial muscles may subtly mimic the expression. Your emotional centers light up in resonance. You don't just observe the smile, you feel a whisper of it. This extends to pain, joy, effort, even intention. Watching someone struggle to lift a heavy box may make your muscles tense. Seeing someone cry may spark tears of your own, not because you're consciously choosing empathy, but because your brain is practicing it automatically. These neural reflections aren't about copying, they're about connecting. Mirror neurons help us understand others not just intellectually, but emotionally and physically. They form part of the substrate for embodied simulation, the idea that we internalize other people's actions and feelings by subtly reproducing them within ourselves. It's why stories move us, why dance can bring goosebumps, why a character's heartbreak on screen can leave us shaken for hours afterward. It's also why emotional pain can feel like physical pain. In fact, the brain areas involved in physical suffering, like the anterior cingulate cortex, also activate when we observe or imagine emotional suffering in someone else. Through these mirror systems, the boundary between self and other becomes softer, more porous. Your pain becomes, in some small way, my pain. This mirroring extends beyond feelings to intentions. Some research suggests that when you see someone reaching for a cup, your mirror neurons don't just mimic the motion, they predict the goal. Your brain simulates the entire act: reaching, grasping, lifting. You're not just observing behavior, you're understanding motive, decoding meaning. And still, this all happens beneath awareness. No one teaches you how to do it. The neurons simply fire, the reflection appears, and suddenly, without thinking, you know they are tired, they are anxious, they are in love. It is not language, it is knowing. Yet, not all mirroring is equal. Some people have stronger resonance, more sensitive mirror systems. These individuals may be natural empaths, more attuned to the emotional vibrations of others, but this gift can come with weight. To feel so deeply what others feel can blur the line between boundaries. When your mirror stays on too long, it can be hard to remember where your emotions end and another's begin. There is also mystery here. Scientists still debate the extent and complexity of mirror neurons in humans, but the poetry remains somewhere in the brain. There are cells tuned not just to action, but to understanding, not just to motion, but to meaning. You are not isolated. You are not an island. You are a hall of mirrors quietly reflecting the world around you, one heartbeat at a time. And when you feel something you didn't expect, or find yourself moved by another's moment, it may be your mind reaching across the divide, whispering, "I see you. I know you. I feel this with you." Your skin is not just a boundary, it is a landscape of sensation, a living canvas painted with the brushstrokes of light, warmth, and touch. It is the first thing the world meets, and the last thing we ever truly notice. But the skin speaks, quietly and constantly. It is an emotional organ, transmitting subconscious signals before thought has time to arrive. Every inch of your skin is rich with receptors, tiny biological messengers tuned to pressure, temperature, vibration, and texture. These receptors gather information not only about the outside world, but also about your own internal state. Goosebumps in the cold, a flush during embarrassment, the slow rise of warmth when someone you love draws near. These are messages, rising not from mind but from body. Touch is the oldest sense, evolutionarily speaking. Long before eyes or ears developed, primitive organisms sensed their environment through contact. Even now, as modern humans, we are profoundly shaped by what touches us, and by how we touch. Studies show that even the briefest physical contact, a pat on the shoulder, the brush of a hand, can alter our emotional state, boost cooperation, and reduce anxiety. But much of this exchange happens below the surface of awareness. There's a special class of nerve fibers in the skin called C-tactile afferents. They respond specifically to slow, gentle touch like the kind experienced during a caress. These fibers don't just inform the brain of contact, they deliver a kind of emotional tone, a message of safety, warmth, and care. A slow stroke across the forearm activates the insula, the part of the brain linked to social bonding and emotional awareness. This is the science behind a mother's touch, a lover's hand, a friend's comforting gesture. The body listens deeply. Temperature changes on the skin also tell a story. When you're nervous, blood flows away from your extremities, your hands become colder. When you feel safe or connected, the opposite happens. Warmth returns. We speak of people giving us the chills, or of warm personalities, but these aren't just metaphors. Your skin reflects your emotional environment. It adapts to the unspoken. There's also the phenomenon of skin conductance, the tiny electrical changes that occur when we sweat, often linked to stress, arousal, or excitement. These signals are so sensitive they are used in lie detection, though not always reliably. Still, they offer a glimpse into the body's hidden reactions. Your skin may betray a truth you won't let yourself say aloud. It pulses with honesty. And then there is texture, the way certain surfaces make you recoil or relax. The comfort of worn fabric, the thrill of velvet, the unease of something sticky or rough. These reactions are rooted in memory, in early experience, in deep subconscious association. Some textures soothe, others unsettle. Your skin remembers them all. Touch deprivation. The absence of skin-to-skin contact can be deeply harmful. In infants, it leads to developmental delays. In adults, it can cause feelings of isolation, sadness, and restlessness. This is not just a psychological response. It is biological. Without touch, the body loses a kind of anchor, a way of knowing that it is here, that it is safe, that it is real. Even the act of touching your own skin, rubbing your hands, cradling your face, gently placing a palm over your chest can calm the nervous system. These are gestures of self-regulation, ancient and intuitive. You may not even notice you're doing them, but your body does. Your skin does. It listens. So the next time your hand lingers on another's arm, or your fingers trace a line across your own shoulder, know that this is not small. It is a signal, a reminder, a language. Your skin is not just protection, it is perception. It is the interface between your inner world and the world outside. You feel the world not just with your mind, but with your surface. Every shiver, every sigh, every soft brush of wind, it all writes itself onto you. And beneath the words, beneath the thoughts, your skin quietly replies, I am here. I am feeling. I am alive. There is a language that lives not in words or gestures, but in the invisible distance between bodies, a space that shrinks and expands depending on how we feel about others, about ourselves, about what we cannot quite name. This silent grammar is known as proxemics, the subconscious dance of personal space, and though we rarely speak of it, we speak through it all the time. In every moment, you are navigating invisible borders. The space between you and another person is charged with meaning. Step too close, and tension may rise. Step too far, and the connection may dim. Even without realizing it, your body is always measuring, am I safe here? Am I welcome? Do I belong? These questions are answered not in words, but in inches. Anthropologist Edward T. Hall first explored this concept, noting how people structure space according to cultural norms and emotional cues. He identified different zones: intimate, personal, social, public, each with its own unspoken rules. Within 12 inches, we allow only those we trust most. Friends, family, lovers. Beyond that, each layer signals a change in relationship from warmth to formality to distance. But these zones aren't fixed. They bend and shift with mood and context. When we feel vulnerable, we may pull away. When we feel curious or affectionate, we lean in. The subconscious constantly adjusts our physical proximity to match the emotional landscape. Watch two people talking, and you'll see the choreography unfold. One steps closer, the other mirrors, or flinches. The conversation deepens or retreats, depending on how their bodies negotiate that space. These movements are rarely conscious, yet they reveal everything: comfort, tension, trust, fear. Even posture and orientation matter. Facing someone head-on signals openness or confrontation, depending on expression. Angling slightly away may soften the intensity or suggest withdrawal. Sitting side by side can feel more intimate than sitting face to face, depending on the moment. We are always shifting subtly to shape the emotional tone of our shared air. And in attraction, this language becomes magnetic. Two people drawn to each other often close the gap unconsciously. Their feet point toward one another. Their bodies lean ever so slightly forward. Their hands rest closer to shared space. The gravity of desire speaks first in inches, not declarations. But space can also reveal discomfort. When someone backs away during a conversation or places an object between themselves and another, they may be subconsciously protecting their emotional boundaries. These are not gestures of rejection, but of regulation and attempt to feel safe in a moment that feels uncertain. Culture weaves its own patterns into this dance. In some places, closeness is a sign of warmth and engagement. In others, it feels intrusive. Yet beneath cultural norms lies a deeper rhythm, the universal human need to control the space around our bodies. This space is sacred. When honored, it allows trust to bloom. When violated, it triggers the nervous system's quiet alarm. Even in silence, space communicates. Think of someone standing alone in an elevator, pressed into a corner, or two strangers waiting at a bus stop, creating invisible zones of solitude. There's an agreement there, unspoken, but understood. This is my space. That is yours. And yet, when someone breaks the rule with a smile, a question, a gentle presence, the space may soften. New possibility may unfold. And then there are the moments when space disappears entirely, the long embrace that feels like returning to a forgotten home. the closeness in bed with someone you love, where breath and heartbeat seem to merge. In these moments, distance becomes presence. Separation dissolves. So much of human connection is shaped not by what we say, but by how close we allow ourselves to be. How bravely we cross those invisible thresholds, or how gently we step back when needed. Your body knows this language. It speaks it fluently, even if your mind does not. Every step forward, every lean away, every inch of space is part of your quiet conversation with the world. And sometimes, the most profound truths are found not in words, but in the sacred, shifting space between them. The face is a map not of fixed lines or settled lands, but of fleeting weather. Storms of feeling pass across it in less than a second. A twitch in the cheek, a tightening at the corners of the mouth, the barest narrowing of the eyes. These are microexpressions swift, involuntary flashes of genuine emotion that flicker across the face before the conscious mind has time to intervene. You may not notice them consciously, but your subconscious does. It's always watching, always recording. You might get a feeling about someone, a sense that their smile didn't quite reach their eyes, or that their answer came too quickly, too polished. Often, that feeling isn't just a hunch, it's your nervous system reacting to a microexpression you didn't even realize you saw. Microexpressions usually last between for as a 1/25th and 1/4 of a second. Too fast to fake, too fast to stop. They reveal emotions a person may wish to hide: fear, contempt, sadness, guilt, or joy. These moments are so brief they seem like ghosts of feeling, yet they carry profound meaning. They are the heartbeat of the truth beneath the mask. Imagine someone saying, "I'm fine," with a smile, but for a split second, a flash of fear crosses their eyes. That instant betrays more than the words ever could. The body, unfiltered, spoke first. Paul Ekman, a pioneer in the study of facial expressions, mapped out 7 universal emotions that appear as microexpressions across all human cultures: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise, and contempt. These expressions rise from the deep wiring of the brain from places older than language, older than story. They're part of the shared human code. Even infants show them. A baby a few months old can express surprise, frustration, joy. Their little faces move in rapid bursts, untouched by performance. As we grow, we learn to mask and manage these expressions, to smile when we are disappointed, to look calm when we are afraid. But still, the truth slips through, for just a moment. These hidden signals can create tension in conversations without anyone understanding why. You may feel inexplicably uneasy around someone, not because of what they said, but because of what their face said when they weren't aware. A micro wince, a flicker of contempt, a micro expression your eyes caught but your mind didn't translate. And yet, this doesn't mean we should become detectives of others' feelings, always on alert for contradiction. Micro expressions aren't accusations. They're human. Everyone slips, everyone hides a feeling now and then, or shows one they didn't mean to. These brief expressions aren't lies. They're fragments of a deeper, messier honesty, the kind that lives at the intersection of emotion and control. Sometimes, even joy is hidden. A person may try to appear neutral, but a flash of delight escapes them when they hear a name, see a photo, or speak a memory aloud. Their eyes widen, their lips part. The truth sneaks out and vanishes, and something inside you feels its warmth rising before thought. Your own face does this too. When you see someone you care for, a tiny smile may bloom before you speak. When you feel nervous, your eyebrows may lift for a heartbeat and fall. Often, the people closest to you pick up on these cues, even without knowing why. This is part of emotional attunement, a deep, intuitive reading of facial moments too subtle to name. Microexpressions remind us that we are not perfectly sealed beings, that no matter how composed we appear, there are always brief leakages of the soul. They are flashes of poetry, unscripted, unrehearsed, alive. So next time you get a gut feeling about someone's mood, listen. Look gently, not critically. The face, in its quietest moments, offers us windows into the emotional weather within, and in those flickers, those half seconds of rawness, we are given something rare, a glimpse not of how someone wants to be seen, but of who they truly are just for a moment. In a world that often prizes motion, stillness is frequently misunderstood. We're taught to notice action, to interpret gesture, to listen for words. But what if silence? What if stillness is its own kind of language? Not a pause in communication, but a deeper layer of it, a whisper that can only be heard when everything else goes quiet. Stillness is not the absence of emotion. It is sometimes its most concentrated form. A person frozen mid-thought, a hand suspended in air, a body suddenly rigid during conversation. These moments carry weight. Subconsciously, we feel them. The still body radiates tension or presence, like a held breath that fills a room, and the mind notices, not through logic, but through a deep mammalian awareness that something is being said without movement at all. There's an ancient intelligence in this. In the wild, stillness is survival. Animals freeze when danger is near, not out of fear alone, but as a strategy, a message: I am listening, I am calculating, I am not reacting yet. This evolutionary thread runs through us still. Our stillness can signal alertness, uncertainty, authority, or control. In conversation, a moment of silence can be louder than speech. A delay in response, a gaze held just a second too long, a breath not taken. These are not empty. They're full of meaning. A held pause might communicate hesitation, grief, restraint, or even power. The person who does not speak is often the one who holds the most attention, and yet, we often rush to fill the stillness fearing what it might reveal. Our discomfort with silence is cultural, psychological, biological, but in truth, silence is not a void. It's a vessel, a container for truth that has not yet formed into words. Therapists know this. Musicians know this. So do actors and poets. A perfectly timed pause can pierce deeper than any crescendo. It allows space for meaning to emerge not from the speaker, but from within the listener. It is the silence between notes that gives the melody its shape. Stillness can also be a protest. In the face of chaos or conflict, choosing not to react, not to flinch or flee, becomes a statement of presence, of inner steadiness. The body, in refusing motion, says, I will not be moved. This kind of stillness is not passive, it is powerful. Think of a child, motionless in anticipation, a lover waiting in the quiet after a vulnerable confession, a mourner sitting alone, unmoving, among flowers and candles. In each case, the stillness is not emptiness, it is saturation. Emotion too dense for motion, feeling that has filled every limb. Even in your own life, you've felt the pressure of stillness, the quiet before a difficult decision, the breath held before a word you can't quite say. The body knows how to hold space. It knows how to become a vessel of waiting, of listening, of becoming. And so, next time you find yourself in stillness or witness it in someone else, resist the urge to rush in. Let it speak. Let it unfold. The subconscious is not always a moving current. Sometimes, it is a silent lake, still, deep, and full of reflection. To be still is not to be empty. It is to be present in the most profound way. Stillness says, I am here. I feel this. I am listening. And in that, there is a truth that no motion could ever contain. Before you realize you're curious, your feet might take a small step forward. Before you admit you want to leave, they may begin to turn away, long before the mind has formed a decision to stay, to approach, to retreat. The feet already know. They move with a kind of subconscious honesty that the rest of the body often conceals. This is not metaphor. In the realm of nonverbal communication, feet are among the most revealing and least observed messengers. They lack the social filters of the face and hands. We rarely think about what our feet are doing, and so they act freely, guided by deeper currents of feeling. That freedom makes them truthful. In studies of body language, when people are engaged or interested, their feet tend to point toward the object of their attention, a person, a doorway, a group. When disinterested or uncomfortable, the feet begin to drift. They may angle away, shift toward the exit, or fidget in subtle restlessness. These movements often happen before the person themselves is aware of wanting to disengage. It is the body's way of preparing for what the mind has not yet spoken. We feel this without naming it. When someone's feet are turned away from us during conversation, it can create a vague sense of distance, as if they've already left, even while their words remain polite. Conversely, when someone's whole body, feet included, faces us directly, we feel seen, held, chosen. Children reveal this instinct clearly. When excited, they bounce on their toes. When nervous, they shuffle or hide their feet. Their bodies are not yet trained to suppress these impulses. They show us what honesty in motion looks like. As we grow older, our faces may learn to smile on command, but our feet remain harder to coach. Think about flirting. Long before a person speaks a word of attraction, their feet may already be signaling it pointed toward the other, leaning in, mimicking the posture of their companion. It's an unconscious alignment. The feet don't lie. And in social groups, people often stand in open or closed configurations depending on how welcome others are to join. The space between feet forms a gate or a barrier, signaling openness or exclusion. Even in solitude, our feet can betray our inner landscape. Pacing during anxiety, tapping in moments of boredom or anticipation, slowing down when lost in thought. These movements are often subtle translations of emotion into action. When words fail or remain unformed, the feet begin to write the body's silent sentence. And what of leaving? So many of life's goodbyes begin at the feet. The conversation continues, but one foot begins to shift backward. The weight leans toward departure, a pivot, a toe angled toward the door. It's not always rudeness. Sometimes it's hesitation, fear, the subconscious making the decision our conscious mind resists. But the feet also know joy. Think of the instinct to dance, to move rhythmically to music. This, too, is a subconscious release, the body responding to pattern and pulse, pleasure and play. Feet become instruments of expression, of freedom, of surrender to feeling. Before the hands lift, before the lips sing, the feet begin to move. And there is one more kind of knowledge: the feet hold a longing for groundedness. When life feels chaotic, we often seek grounding, literally standing barefoot on earth, on sand, on wood. There's comfort in feeling the surface beneath us, a reminder that we are not floating minds, but bodies connected to something solid, something still. So perhaps next time you find yourself uncertain, unsure of your desire, your fear, your next move, look down. Where are your feet pointed? What are they trying to do? What truth might they be revealing before you've had the courage to say it aloud? The feet know first. They sense direction before decision, emotion before explanation. They are the compass hidden beneath your thoughts. And if you follow where they lean, you might just find where your heart already wants to go. There is a moment, barely more than a breath, when a gaze lingers just a little too long. Not inappropriately, not always romantically, but deeply, meaningfully, as if something within one person is reaching out, uncertain and yet certain, asking silently, "Do you feel this too?" Our eyes do more than see. They reach, they reveal, they hold. And when they linger, even for a heartbeat longer than expected, they whisper truths that words rarely find. Eye contact is one of the most primal forms of human connection. Newborn babies seek it out within hours of birth, drawn instinctively to the eyes of caregivers. We learn safety, identity, and love through it. Across cultures, eyes carry weight, sometimes reverence, sometimes power, sometimes vulnerability. They are not just windows to the soul. They are mirrors, too. When we look into someone's eyes, our brain enters a unique state of alertness. The superior temporal sulcus, a region responsible for decoding gaze and social signals, lights up. This is where we interpret where someone is looking, and more than that, why. And when that gaze holds, when it doesn't flick away immediately, our body takes notice. A lingering gaze can mean many things: curiosity, admiration, confusion, connection. Sometimes it means nothing at all, just a wandering thought. But your subconscious doesn't wait for the story. It reacts. Heart rate may increase. Breath may catch. A sense of warmth or discomfort may rise, because somewhere inside, you've registered the possibility of being seen. Not looked at, but seen. There's a concept known as the mutual gaze, where both people hold each other's eyes simultaneously. It creates a feedback loop like two mirrors facing one another. Emotions intensify. Awareness deepens. In this gaze, time can bend. Seconds stretch. The moment slows. And for many, this is both beautiful and terrifying. Because to hold a gaze is to surrender control. To be still and visible in front of another person is to say, I will not hide here. I will not pretend. And that can feel raw, intimate, even dangerous, especially in a world that often teaches us to shield, to avoid, to scan, and move on. But when the gaze lingers sincerely, gently, it can heal. It can say what language cannot. In therapy, prolonged eye contact at just the right moment can break open a truth long buried. In romance, it can stir the ache of longing before a single touch. In friendship, it can offer the deepest kind of presence. I'm not looking through you. I'm with you. And yet, it's fragile. Too long, and it becomes intrusive. Too short, and it's missed entirely. This is why it lives in the subconscious, a flicker of feeling between intent and instinct. A dance of seconds, delicate as a sigh. Some people avoid eye contact not because they're hiding, but because they're feeling too much. Neurodivergent individuals, those with trauma, those with immense empathy for them. The gaze is not simple. It is overwhelming. It's like standing too close to a fire. And that, too, is a truth worth honoring. But even in avoidance, there is meaning. A darting glance, a look followed by quick retreat. These are signals of vulnerability, of fear, of restrained emotion. The eyes speak even when they won't meet yours. And sometimes, the most powerful moments come not from constant contact, but from the gaze that returns. That brief lock, that instant of acknowledgement. The moment when someone who had looked away looks back. So notice it the next time a gaze lingers. Whether it sparks warmth, or discomfort, or wonder. Whether it lasts for half a second or forever. Because in that moment, something real passed between you. A glimpse beneath the surface. A question, or an offering. A truth not spoken, but shared. And in that quiet eye-to-eye connection, the subconscious stood up and said, I'm here. I see you. Do you see me? Too. Power doesn't always shout. It doesn't always enter the room with grand gestures or loud declarations. Sometimes, power leans ever so slightly forward. Sometimes, it tilts the head just so. Sometimes, it speaks with posture alone and the body listens. Without knowing it, you constantly read the angles of other people's bodies. A raised chin, a lowered gaze, shoulders pulled back, or slightly collapsed. These positions, however brief or subtle, carry ancient meanings. They are echoes of our evolutionary past, where physical dominance and submission help determine safety, status, and survival. One of the clearest indicators of social power is expansiveness. When someone takes up more space standing tall, chest open, arms resting wide, the body is signaling confidence, control, readiness, not necessarily aggression, but presence. This is called a high power pose, and studies suggest that adopting such postures, even briefly, can alter hormone levels, increasing testosterone and lowering cortisol, the body's stress signal. Now consider the opposite collapsed posture. Folded arms, inward turned shoulders. These signal vulnerability, defensiveness, or deference. A low power pose. Often, people unconsciously assume these stances when they feel out of place or uncertain long before the mind acknowledges insecurity. But there's something even quieter and perhaps more poetic than posture, the tilt. A slight tilt of the head can mean many things, and context gives it color. Tilted downward with eyes up, a signal of submission, a posture animals often use to appear smaller or non-threatening. Tilted sideways. This often signals curiosity or empathy. It's the subconscious making space, softening the presence, inviting connection. In high-pressure spaces, a small tilt can disarm tension. It says, "I'm listening. I'm open. I am not here to dominate." Even the angle of the neck and jaw can shift the entire tone of a conversation. A lifted chin might suggest defiance or pride. A lowered one, humility or retreat. These movements are slight, nearly invisible, but they ripple through social dynamics in real time. Power, after all, is relational. We feel it or the lack of it not in isolation, but in comparison to others. A person who suddenly straightens when someone else enters the room. A slight turn away from someone perceived as lower in status. A casual lean into someone seen as an equal. These are not random shifts. They are social negotiations, conducted wordlessly. Even the angle of eye contact plays a role. Looking down, up, or straight ahead can shift perceived dominance or submission. Holding gaze level often signals confidence. A glance downward can express respect or a desire to disappear. These are movements shaped by both culture and biology, tradition and instinct. Animals use these signals too. In wolf packs, the alpha holds their head high, their tail lifted, their gaze direct. Subordinate wolves lower their posture, avoid eye contact, and make themselves smaller. Humans mirror this pattern more than we realize. In business meetings, in classrooms, on first dates. And yet, power does not always mean loudness or aggression. There is great power in stillness, in softness, in choosing when not to assert. The person who remains calm while others escalate. The one who listens more than they speak. The one who stands their ground gently, but firmly. This, too, is power. And the body shows it in the smallest of ways. So observe the tilt, the lean, the arrangement of shoulders, neck, spine. Watch how others shift when someone enters the room. Watch how you shift unconsciously in their presence. Because beneath every conversation, there is a quieter one unfolding. Who leads, who follows, who softens, first, who holds the center. Your body knows these rules, even if your mind doesn't, and sometimes, the deepest signals of power aren't declared. They're embodied, not shouted, but tilted, ever so slightly, toward truth. There are roles we play without rehearsal, positions we adopt in silence, in every group, in every gathering, even among strangers, an invisible script begins to unfold. No one announces it, no one reads it aloud, and yet, each person somehow knows where to stand, when to speak, and when to hold back. This is the quiet architecture of social hierarchy, a subconscious arrangement of power, deference, and belonging that arises wherever humans gather. It does not require kings or titles. It lives in tone, in gesture, in who speaks first and who gets interrupted. And often, it is decided long before anyone is aware it exists. Our ancestors lived in tightly bonded tribes, where understanding one's place in the group meant survival. This ancient wiring still shapes how we respond to others today. In the presence of authority, many people instinctively lower their voices, adopt more closed posture, or avoid direct eye contact. These are not failures of confidence. They are inherited signals of respect, deference, or caution. Hierarchy reveals itself in 1,000 subtle ways. Who takes the central seat at the table, whose jokes get laughed at, who interrupts, and who does not, who mirrors whose body language. Even in silence, these power cues unfold. Children notice them early. By age 3, they begin to recognize who holds influence in a group. By 5, they can rank social status based on who gets listened to. They aren't taught this, they absorb it. Just as you did, just as we all do. One key element in this dynamic is entrainment, the tendency of lower status individuals to align their behavior with those perceived as higher status. This can mean matching tone, adopting similar speech patterns, even breathing in sync. The body says, I will follow, I will blend, but it's not always conscious. It's a quiet code of cohesion. Even laughter plays a role. In groups, people often laugh more at the jokes of those with higher status, not always because the jokes are better, but because laughter signals affiliation. It says, I recognize your role. I want to belong. This isn't manipulation. It's the subconscious seeking safety and inclusion. But this script can shift. Hierarchies aren't fixed. In different rooms, different people rise. A student may lead a debate in class, but fall silent at a family dinner. A shy employee might become a confident speaker among close friends. The subconscious constantly scans for context, adjusting your role accordingly. You are not one identity. You are a constellation of them, shifting with the space. There's also a subtle dance of permission. Watch how people respond when someone new enters a group. Do others make room, turn their bodies to include them, or do they keep their positions closed? These small decisions send powerful messages about belonging. And the one entering often senses this not with thought, but with the full body. Even silence within a group has hierarchy. Some people can remain silent and still hold space. Their presence demands attention, even without words. Others speak, yet are overlooked. The difference often lies in how the group perceives their social weight, a perception that may have nothing to do with value or insight, and everything to do with unconscious bias, body language, or history. Importantly, these scripts can be rewritten. Awareness brings choice. When we begin to see the quiet roles we inhabit, the ones we never auditioned for, we can step out of them, reshape them, pass the microphone. The most powerful leaders are often the ones who notice who hasn't spoken, who doesn't take up space, and who needs permission that should have been granted by right. So, the next time you enter a room, pause. Notice who leads the energy and who recedes. Notice your own posture. Are you rising or folding? Are you speaking from center or from the edge? Because even in the quiet, your body is playing its part in the hidden play of status. And sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is pause and choose a different line. There are touches so light you hardly register them, a hand brushing your back as someone walks by, a brief tap on the shoulder, the soft contact of fingers during the exchange of an object. And yet, these moments can linger long after they pass. They stir feelings, alter perceptions, even shape decisions, all without your awareness. This is the invisible touch effect, the subtle, subconscious influence of gentle physical contact. You are touched more often than you realize. In busy spaces, crowded gatherings, or warm conversations, touch weaves through the fabric of human interaction like a quiet thread. It may be fleeting, accidental, or intentional, but each contact carries meaning, whether you're aware of it or not. Studies in psychology have shown that a brief, casual touch can influence behavior dramatically. In restaurants, diners touched lightly on the arm by their server were more likely to leave higher tips. Strangers helped more readily when lightly touched beforehand. People reported warmer impressions of others who gently made contact, even in passing. Touch, it seems, primes us for openness, connection, and trust, not by logic, but by sensation. The skin, as we've explored, is not just a boundary. It's a sensor, a storyteller, and touch is its language. When someone touches you gently, your brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. It promotes feelings of safety, emotional closeness, and even compassion. In this way, touch becomes a form of nonverbal reassurance. I am here. You are safe. Even the lightest touch can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm the body and reduce stress. This is why a reassuring hand on the back can slow the breath, or why holding someone's hand during distress can steady the heartbeat. The body listens to touch in a way it doesn't always listen to words. But this language is delicate. Context matters deeply. The same touch that brings comfort in one moment can feel invasive in another. Cultural norms shape these boundaries. So do personal histories. A gesture that feels natural to one person might feel overwhelming or inappropriate to another. And so, the invisible touch must be offered gently like a question, not an answer. In romantic settings, touch often builds before we are even conscious of it. A shoulder grazed, a hand offered and held for just a moment too long. These are the preludes to intimacy, where the body begins to speak before the lips do. And often, the depth of feeling lingers far longer than the touch itself. Touch also plays a powerful role in caregiving. Nurses, therapists, parents all understand the healing power of contact. A hand held in grief, a palm resting on a fevered brow. These small gestures are not cures, but comforts. And in many cases, they communicate more than any sentence ever could. We even touch objects differently based on emotion. When remembering something precious, our fingers may linger, tracing edges and textures. When grieving, we may hold on to clothing or gifts, not for their material value, but for the memory of touch they contain. The body stores emotion in sensation. It remembers what the mind tries to forget. There's a mystery in this, a sacredness, because touch is the most immediate of all senses. You do not have to translate it, it simply arrives, fully formed. A moment of contact can bypass suspicion, awaken longing, or dissolve fear. Not because you decide to feel differently, but because your body has already begun to. So consider the last time someone touched you gently, mindfully, even unknowingly. Did you feel safer? Scene changed, however slightly, and when you reached out to another, what passed through your fingertips that words could never carry. Touch may be invisible in its intention, but it leaves fingerprints on the soul. Laughter often arrives unannounced. It bursts out, rises up, escapes before we even understand why. A sudden sound from the body, part breath, part music, part surrender. And in that moment, something profound happens. The conscious mind steps aside, and the subconscious speaks, because laughter doesn't wait for permission. It comes from a place deeper than reason. Contrary to popular belief, most laughter isn't triggered by jokes. In fact, studies show that the majority of human laughter occurs in ordinary conversation during greetings, awkward silences, shared glances, small misunderstandings. It is not always a response to humor. More often, it is a response to connection. Laughter, at its core, is a social glue, a subconscious signal that says we are safe here. I see you. I trust you enough to let go. Even when it seems irrational, laughter has a purpose. It releases tension, diffuses conflict, smooths social edges. It's the body's way of saying, I am disarmed. Neurologically, laughter is complex. It engages the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotion, and involves the coordination of dozens of muscles in the face, throat, and diaphragm. But here's the curious part: that the brain often triggers laughter before the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and decision-making, has time to evaluate what's happening. This means we often laugh before we understand why. Laughter truly is a response that comes before thought. This is why laughter can be so confusing, why we sometimes laugh at funerals, or in moments of fear, or when we're overwhelmed. The body, under emotional pressure, may use laughter as a release valve, a way to process intensity when words fall short. It's not disrespect, it's survival. Children show us this instinct most clearly. Long before they can speak full sentences, they laugh. And not just at silliness, but at rhythm, surprise, sound. Laughter in children is a form of exploration, of participation. It says, I am here. I understand this moment in my own way. Adults, of course, learn to shape laughter to use it strategically. We laugh to soften criticism, to show agreement, to mask discomfort. Sometimes we laugh to hide. Sometimes we laugh to invite. But beneath all these layers is the original rhythm, a sound that reveals connection before comprehension. Interestingly, laughter is also contagious. Hearing someone else laugh can trigger your own laughter, even without knowing the cause. This isn't just empathy, it's mirror neurons at work, copying emotion in the body's language. It's why a room of laughter can become a tide, sweeping everyone into its wave. Laughter shared is laughter multiplied. And then there is the private laughter, the kind that erupts when you're alone and remembering something absurd, the kind that rises from dreams, the kind that arrives mid-thought and makes no sense to anyone else. This laughter, too, is sacred. It is the subconscious playing, releasing, expressing itself in the absence of judgment. In romantic relationships, laughter is often a predictor of long-term connection. Couples who laugh together tend to be more emotionally resilient. Their shared laughter becomes a code, a secret bridge between hearts. In these cases, it's not the joke that matters. It's the act of laughing together, the shared surrender. Laughter is also, strangely, a form of vulnerability. It opens the body, exposes the voice, disturbs the controlled breath. When you laugh, you let someone in even just for a second. And when they laugh back, a quiet promise is made. I am with you in this moment. We are on the same wavelength. So, pay attention to when you laugh and why. What stirred it? What need did it serve? Was it a shield, a celebration, a soft rebellion against the weight of seriousness? Because before you think, before you analyze or explain, your laughter has already said something real. And in that spontaneous sound, there is ancient intelligence, the body's way of reminding the mind, sometimes the truth is felt before it's known. Each blink of the eye seems small, a flicker, a momentary veil, but beneath it lies a wealth of unspoken meaning. The average person blinks around 15 to 20 times per minute, yet we hardly notice it in ourselves or others. That's what makes it such a powerful subconscious signal, because it is so often overlooked. The truths it carries pass through, undetected but deeply felt. Blinks are not just mechanical, they are emotional, cognitive, and even relational. The pace, rhythm, and timing of our blinking shifts depending on what we're thinking, feeling, or avoiding. It is as if the eyes have their own breathing, a subtle punctuation that reveals the tempo of the mind. When someone is calm and at ease, their blinking tends to be soft and rhythmic, like a steady tide. But when stress rises, so does the blink rate. In moments of anxiety, deception, or mental overload, people often blink more rapidly. The body tries to manage the surge of energy by recalibrating sensory input, a blink as a shield, a pause, a micro reset. On the other hand, during deep concentration, such as reading, solving a problem, or listening intently, people blink far less. Their eyes remain fixed, the lids suspended longer between closures. It's as though the brain has asked the body to minimize interruptions. Fewer blinks mean greater focus, but they also mean greater exposure. When someone is completely absorbed, they forget to guard their eyes. And this brings us to one of the most revealing aspects of blinking, its role in social interaction. During conversation, we subconsciously monitor each other's blink patterns. A delayed blink, a prolonged closing of the eyes, a sudden burst of rapid blinking, all of these communicate emotional undercurrents. Discomfort, confusion, embarrassment, fatigue, even attraction. The blink becomes a signal, a boundary, a doorway. Rapid blinking, for instance, may signal nervousness or arousal, but it can also be a form of self-soothing, the body's attempt to regain control, to regulate overstimulation. In contrast, slow blinking, particularly in the context of trust or affection, can signal openness. Cats do this, so do humans. A slow blink towards someone can feel like a nod from the soul. And then there are the blinks we control. The exaggerated closing of the eyes during a sarcastic remark, the deliberate pause to signal disbelief or irritation. These blinks are semi-conscious, still rooted in emotion, but shaped by intention. They're not lies, they're emphasis, the eyes underlining what the mouth does not say directly. In moments of deception, blinking patterns can betray the speaker. While not foolproof indicators of lying, abnormal blink rhythms, blinking too much or too little, especially at unusual moments, can signal that the cognitive load is high. The brain is working overtime to construct a narrative, and the body leaks that strain through the eyes. But perhaps the most intimate blinking patterns occur when we're with someone we trust. Conversations slow, eye contact deepens, blink rates align. This synchrony is known as interpersonal entrainment, and it extends beyond blinking to breath, to posture, to micro-movements. But the eyes are often where it begins. A shared gaze, a mirrored rhythm, a moment of mutual knowing. There's something deeply poetic in this, the idea that even our blinks are not fully our own, that in the presence of others, our bodies adjust, adapt, respond, that our eyelids, so often overlooked, are participants in a dance of connection far more intricate than we've been taught to see. So next time you're in a conversation, try noticing the blinks, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What rhythm does the other person follow? What pattern do your own eyes begin to echo? Because sometimes what we dare not say or do not know how to lives quietly in a flicker, a pause, a veil lowered, a truth blinking softly into the room, waiting to be seen. A sigh can feel like nothing, a whisper of air, barely noticed. But beneath that soft exhale is a hidden language, one of relief, of surrender, of fatigue, or longing. The sigh is a quiet signal from the body, a breath that carries more than oxygen. It carries emotion that words have not yet found. You sigh more often than you think, perhaps dozens, even hundreds of times each day. Many of those sighs are automatic physiological resets, the lungs expanding fully, the breath releasing tension that has crept in unnoticed. Scientists have discovered that sighs serve a vital function. They prevent the collapse of tiny air sacs in the lungs, allowing for deeper, more efficient breathing. In that sense, the body sighs to survive. But there's more. Emotionally, sighs emerge in moments of transition, the pause between effort and letting go, the turning point between holding on and giving in. You sigh when you've tried, and it hasn't worked. You sigh when you remember something you'd rather forget. You sigh when you feel too much or not enough. And you often sigh before you even know why. That's the beauty and mystery of it. The sigh is a subconscious messenger, a soft knock on the door of awareness. It arrives when the nervous system has something to say, but doesn't need a word to say it. The sigh comes from the in-between, not fully conscious, not fully reflex. A ghost of thought passed through breath. In social settings, sighs speak volumes. A long exhale can signal frustration, resignation, or deep empathy. And though it may not be aimed at anyone, those around us feel it. A friend's sigh can shift the tone of a room, create a question, or open a silence. We respond without thinking. Are you okay? What's wrong? Did something happen? These reactions are not learned. They're felt. We are tuned to one another's breath, to the rise and fall, the tempo, the sharpness or softness of each inhale and exhale. A sigh, especially when unexpected, draws attention. It calls in the listener, the witness. Even in literature and poetry, the sigh appears again and again. It is the sound of lovers parting, of hope fading, of peace returning. Shakespeare used sighs as punctuation for longing. Mystics used them to describe the soul's ache for the divine. And still today, we use the word sigh when nothing else seems to fit. It's just sigh. There is also the silent sigh, the one that doesn't make a sound, but changes everything. A soft shift in the shoulders, a quiet closing of the eyes, the moment when someone lets their guard fall, if only for a breath. It is in these sighs that we see each other most clearly, stripped of posture, unadorned by performance, human. And then there are sighs of joy, of relief, the ones that say it's over now. You're safe. We made it. These sighs carry a kind of gratitude that no words can match. A return to ease, a homecoming. The body saying, you don't have to hold it anymore. Pay attention to your sighs, not just when you're tired, but when you're trying, when you're caring, when you're reaching for something unnamed. Your sighs are more than habits, they are moments of honesty. And when someone sighs near you, listen with your whole presence. Ask nothing at first. Let the air settle. Let the moment speak for itself. Because a sigh is not empty. It is full of emotion, of memory, of meaning. It is the soul's softest voice, the breath between the lines. There is a voice in your mind not loud, but constant. A quiet companion that narrates your thoughts, questions your choices, replays old conversations, and imagines ones that haven't yet occurred. This is your inner speech, the invisible dialogue you carry through every waking moment. And though it sounds like you, it often speaks from somewhere deeper, more complex, a place between self and shadow. Inner speech is not just a habit. It is a fundamental part of consciousness. It helps you plan, reflect, rehearse, and decide. It is the stage upon which memory and imagination meet. Sometimes it comes in words, sometimes in sensations, sometimes as images or fragments that flutter through, half-formed and fleeting. You might think this voice is always under your control, but, in truth, much of it arises spontaneously. It speaks even when you don't ask it to. It interrupts. It critiques. It comforts. It warns. It creates stories about who you are, what others think of you, and what the future might hold. These stories are not always accurate, but they feel true. Psychologists have found that people spend a significant portion of their inner lives in conversation with themselves. Some talk through problems, others repeat mantras or affirmations. Some replay traumatic memories or anticipate danger. These inner dialogues shape how we perceive reality because they are our reality, in many ways. The mind believes what it repeats. There's an idea in psychology called the dialogic self. It suggests that your inner voice is not singular, but made of many parts like characters in a play. One voice may sound like a parent, another like a mentor, another like a frightened child. These voices represent internalized relationships, values, fears, and hopes. They emerge at different moments, offering advice, caution, or encouragement. This isn't madness. It's humanity. We are layered beings, and the inner voice is the echo of all we've learned, felt, feared, and dreamed. When you argue with yourself, it's often these internal parts negotiating not confusion, but complexity. And yet, not everyone experiences inner speech the same way. Some people think in pure imagery, others feel concepts more than they hear them. But even then, some form of internal narration is present guiding decisions, shaping emotion, providing continuity to the self. It is the quiet architect behind the scenes. Inner speech can also be deeply subconscious. You may not hear it as language, but you may feel its effects: a sudden wave of shame, a flash of doubt, a subtle boost of courage. These sensations often arise from inner dialogue you didn't even notice. The mind speaks to itself in layers, and the body listens. There is great power in becoming aware of this voice. Not to silence it, but to understand it. When you start noticing the tone of your inner speech, whether it's kind or cruel, panicked or patient, you begin to see the shape of your relationship with yourself. You begin to choose which voices to amplify and which to soothe. Meditation and mindfulness can quiet the surface chatter, allowing deeper patterns to emerge. Writing can give form to the voice, revealing truths that surprise even you. Therapy, too, can illuminate the inner dialogue, helping you trace the origins of certain scripts. You're not enough. You always mess up. You have to keep everyone happy. These aren't truths. They are echoes, and echoes can fade. But your inner voice isn't always a critic. Sometimes it is your greatest guide. The voice that says, rest when you're exhausted. Speak when something needs to be said. Stay when you're ready to flee. It is the oldest friend you've ever had, imperfect, evolving, always near. So tonight, listen for that voice, not with judgment, but with curiosity. What is it saying? Whose voice does it sound like? And what, perhaps, is the sentence beneath the sentence? The truth it's trying to carry to the surface. Because the second self inside you is not a stranger. It is the narrator of your life, the secret author of your everyday. And the more you understand its rhythm, the more gently you can begin to rewrite the story it tells. There is an art to looking and to looking away, a rhythm you follow without realizing, a choreography older than speech. The moment your eyes meet another's, something shifts. Time dilates. The space between bodies softens or tightens. But just as important as the gaze itself is its timing. When you look, how long you hold, and precisely when you look away. Eye contact is not just a connection, it is a negotiation. Between trust and risk, between presence and retreat. In that brief moment when two people's eyes meet, the subconscious mind is doing something extraordinary, scanning for signals, deciphering emotion, measuring intention, and once it has gathered enough, just enough, it releases you. The eyes turn, the contact breaks, and something unspoken is left behind. Research shows that humans instinctively regulate eye contact to balance intimacy and comfort. On average, we maintain direct eye contact for about 3 to 5 seconds at a time during conversation. Any longer, and it begins to feel intense, intimate, or threatening depending on the context. Any shorter, and it may seem evasive, disinterested, or anxious. These durations are rarely calculated. They are felt, and the subconscious is exquisitely sensitive to timing. In experiments, even tiny delays in eye movement, a half second too long or too brief, can change how we interpret someone's behavior. Was that glance friendly, suspicious, too much, too little? The answer is often not in the look, but in the timing of the look. Infants as young as a few months old already respond differently to eye contact that feels just right, versus eye contact that lingers unnaturally. They avert their gaze when overwhelmed, returning only when the moment feels safe again. This early sensitivity never leaves us. It becomes the silent clock of human connection. Romantic attraction, too, is shaped by this rhythm. A lingering gaze can be thrilling if reciprocated, but if not returned, it quickly turns from connection to discomfort. And so the subconscious carefully monitors, adjusts, calibrates. Look, then look away. Look again. A dance of attention and vulnerability. And there's a specific moment, subtle, but meaningful, when one person looks away slightly after the other. This staggered departure from eye contact often signals emotional presence. It's as if one person lingers a beat longer, quietly saying, "I'm still here. I wasn't finished looking." That moment leaves a trace, a soft impression. Something about it lingers in the memory, even when no words are spoken. Cultural context adds another layer. In some societies, direct eye contact is a sign of respect and attentiveness. In others, it can be seen as bold or even aggressive. The subconscious adapts accordingly. It remembers past responses, learns from discomfort, and builds quiet strategies. Glance often, but briefly. Look directly, but soften the intensity. The eyes become diplomats. But even across cultures, there is one common thread: the synchronization of gaze. When two people lock eyes at the same moment, something unique happens in the brain. Neural activity increases in regions linked to empathy and social connection. It's as though the eyes recognize the other as a self, not just a face, but a mind, a presence. That mutual moment can create warmth, or tension, or awe. Avoiding eye contact, too, is meaningful. It can be a protective act. People with social anxiety, trauma histories, or neurodivergent minds may find prolonged eye contact overwhelming. This isn't disconnection, it's self-preservation. And often, their attention is no less present, it's just redirected through safer channels. A hand movement, a breath, a voice. Technology, with all its screens and lenses, complicates this. Video calls create the illusion of eye contact, but the subtle timing is off. Faces look back, but not into us. The delay, the lack of shared physical space, fractures the natural rhythm, and something ancient in the subconscious feels that break. So how do we return to the real rhythm? By noticing it, gently. Watch how long you hold someone's gaze. Watch how they respond. Feel the moment when it's time to look away, not out of fear, but out of care. That tiny release, that breath of distance, allows the connection to breathe. It invites return. And in that back and forth, that subtle measuring of presence and permission, we speak a language older than memory. I see you. I'm here. Now I look away, so you can return. You spend most of your waking life focused on a narrow field of vision, what's directly in front of you, what you're actively attending to, and yet, your brain is constantly processing far more than you realize. Beyond the crisp spotlight of attention lies the peripheral mind, the quiet guardian at the edges of awareness, absorbing, filtering, and interpreting the world just outside your gaze. Peripheral vision, in the physical sense, covers the outer edges of your visual field. It's blurrier than the center, less precise, but it's incredibly fast, sensitive to motion, shape, and light. Your peripheral sight evolved not to read text or recognize faces, but to detect threats, opportunities, and patterns. The subconscious uses this space as an early warning system, picking up signals before they fully register. But vision is just the beginning. The mental periphery includes every whisper of sensation and experience. You don't actively notice the flickering light in a room, the hum of a refrigerator, the subtle shift in someone's tone, the forgotten memory stirred by a scent. These details rarely enter conscious thought, and yet they shape your behavior, your mood, even your dreams. You've felt this before, the sense that something is off, even when everything looks normal, a discomfort you can't name, a feeling that someone is behind you, watching, before you hear a sound. These are signals caught by the peripheral mind fragments of truth, registered by the body before the brain can explain. The subconscious is a pattern-seeking machine. It doesn't just wait for your attention. It goes out ahead of it, scanning for rhythms, cues, signs of safety or danger. That strange tension you feel before entering a room. It may be the body reacting to posture, stillness, silence, the unspoken mood already sensed from the hallway. The conscious mind catches up later, asking questions, but the periphery has already answered. There's a reason why, in storytelling and film, so much emotion is carried in what lies just beyond the center, a shadow moving behind a character, a note half heard, a lingering presence in the edge of the frame. These elements tap into the same system. Your subconscious uses the belief that something important is happening just out of reach, something you might miss if you're not paying attention. Creatives often access this peripheral mind more deliberately. A poet sits in silence, allowing vague impressions to drift in. A painter trusts intuition, placing color or shape without explanation. A musician plays a note that feels right long before they know why. These aren't random acts. They are moments when the periphery becomes the guide. Even your intuition, that gut feeling, that inexplicable certainty often emerges from the periphery. It's not magic. It's the result of countless microsignals gathered without conscious awareness expressions. Smells, temperatures, past experiences, bodily sensations. The subconscious weaves them together into a feeling, a pull, a whisper. But modern life pushes against this sensitivity. With eyes glued to screens and thoughts crowded by stimuli, we shrink the space of perception. We ignore the periphery until something dramatic forces our attention outward. A loud noise, a sudden movement, an unexpected silence. Yet the wisdom of the periphery remains. The more you slow down, the more it begins to reappear. Notice the feel of your clothes against your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the gentle background hum of the world outside your window. None of these things need your attention to exist, but they change you all the same. Meditation can open the doorway. So can walking slowly, aimlessly, So can listening to music not for the melody, but for the spaces in between the notes. These practices widen the spotlight of your attention, allowing the background to step forward not as distraction, but as meaning. Because life doesn't happen only in the center. It happens at the edges and glances, textures, pauses, and breaths, and the part of you that knows this is always watching. Not loudly, not impatiently, just faithfully. The peripheral mind never sleeps. It is your quiet companion, your early listener, your unseen guide. And sometimes, when clarity refuses to come, it is not the center you need to watch, but the gentle light gathering at the edge. You wake, and the dream dissolves a vanishing fog of symbols, places, voices. Yet something lingers, a strange mood, a thought you didn't choose, a pull toward or away from someone or something, though nothing has changed. This is the quiet leak between night and day, the place where dreams seep into waking behavior, shaping what we feel long after the images have faded. Dreams are not just nighttime stories, they are emotional simulations, subconscious rehearsals of unresolved feelings, unmet needs, and unspoken fears. The brain uses sleep not only to rest, but to process. It replays memories, invents metaphors, and tests possibilities in a space where consequences dissolve. And when you wake, the dream may be gone, but the emotional residue remains. That residue can affect how you move through the day. You might avoid someone because of something they did in a dream, even if you know it wasn't real. You may feel tenderness toward a person you haven't spoken to in years, because their face appeared to you in sleep. These are not irrational feelings. They are echoes from the subconscious still vibrating in your body, even as your mind insists on logic. The neuroscience of dreams reveals that during REM sleep, the stage most associated with vivid dreaming, the brain's emotional centers, especially the amygdala, become highly active. Meanwhile, areas responsible for logical reasoning, such as the prefrontal cortex, dial down. This imbalance allows emotions to rise untethered by fact, resulting in images that are strange, exaggerated, symbolic, and yet somehow deeply true. Dreams often exaggerate what you suppress. If you're avoiding anger, it may arrive in the form of a fire, a storm, a chase. If you're suppressing grief, it may show itself as a broken object, a fading face, a missed train. And while these symbols vanish upon waking, their emotional energy often does not. It leaks into your tone, your posture, your reactions into the background music of your day. There is also a phenomenon known as dream-induced mood bias. It means that the emotional tone of your dreams, even when not remembered, can color your waking perception. A stressful dream can make the world seem more threatening. A peaceful one can soften your edges. You may not recall the dream, but you carry it. And sometimes, dreams solve what waking thought cannot. There are countless stories of inventors, artists, and thinkers waking with the solution to a problem they couldn't crack in the light. This is not coincidence. The dreaming brain reconfigures memory and logic in novel ways, breaking patterns, forming new connections. When you wake with sudden clarity, it may be because your subconscious worked through the night, gently unraveling the knot. There's a quieter kind of dream leak, too, the kind that stirs your creativity without your knowing. You may feel drawn to certain colors, words, places, or people without knowing why. You may make a choice that feels instinctual. The subconscious has its fingerprints on everything, and dreams are its fingerprints pressed softly against the morning. Dreams also whisper through language. The metaphors we choose, the slips of the tongue, the symbols we're drawn to in art and story, all of these may be dream traces, a kind of emotional residue that coats our words in meaning we don't fully understand. Lucid dreamers, those who become aware inside a dream, often speak of waking up twice, once in the dream, and once again in the world. They begin to recognize how similar the two realms can feel, how symbolic both waking life and dreaming life truly are. One does not end where the other begins. So the next time you feel something, you cannot name a sadness without cause, a joy without reason. Pause. Ask yourself, what did I dream last night? What might I still be carrying? Even if you don't remember, trust that the subconscious remembers for you. It stirs beneath the surface, shaping your morning with the language of night. Because the line between dreaming and waking is not a wall, but a door left slightly open. And every day, you walk through it, carrying the dust of stars on your shoulders. You like to believe your choices are made in the moment, deliberate, conscious, directed by reason. But beneath every decision is a quieter truth. The decision began long before you realized it. It was shaped by memory, emotion, bodily signals, and subconscious predictions, all working invisibly, silently, beneath awareness. By the time you think, I've decided, your body may already be moving. The choice is often already made. This is the realm of the pre-decision, a moment not marked by awareness, but by momentum. Like the tug of a current before you see the river. It is your subconscious mind, always forecasting, always adjusting, preparing you for the next moment before the next moment arrives. In neuroscience, this idea has been explored in studies measuring brain activity during simple decisions like pressing a button or moving a hand. Researchers found that the brain shows signs of preparing for an action hundreds of milliseconds before the participant becomes aware of making the decision. This readiness potential, as it's called, suggests that volition arises after the brain has already set the plan in motion. That doesn't mean free will is an illusion, but it may not be what we think it is. It's not a singular moment of control, it's a wave, a sequence. Conscious thought might be less of a command center and more of a narrator, arriving just after the action begins, explaining what the body already started to do. And the pre-decision doesn't only happen in the lab, you live it every day. When you decide to call a friend, the impulse likely came from a chain of subtle triggers, a scent, a stray thought, the way the light hit a photograph. When you reach for a certain food, your body has already registered cues of hunger, mood, and memory. You don't think your way into most of your behaviors. You feel your way there, guided by quiet markers you may never see. These early nudges, what cognitive scientists sometimes call somatic markers, arise from the body itself. A tightening in the stomach, a lightness in the chest, a warm sense of familiarity. These are not emotions to be analyzed. They are signals, emotional bookmarks left behind by past experiences. The body remembers what worked, what hurt, what healed, and brings that history into the now. You feel them when standing at a crossroads. Do I stay or leave? Speak or stay silent? Trust or retreat? Often, you sense the answer before you name it, that pause before the yes, the instinct that leans toward no. These are not random reactions. They are whispers from your deeper mind, shaped by thousands of moments you've forgotten, but never fully lost. In relationships, this pre-decision rhythm shows up in how we respond to others. You may smile before you realize you're happy to see someone. Step back before you consciously feel discomfort. The subconscious acts like a filter gathering information, scanning faces, tones, and patterns faster than your conscious thoughts can keep up. By the time your mind catches up, your heart and body have already spoken. But this doesn't mean you're powerless. On the contrary, understanding the pre-decision space can empower you. It's an invitation to pause, to notice the current before it becomes a wave, to ask, what am I feeling? What signal is my body giving me? Awareness becomes a form of quiet agency, a way to surf the wave rather than be swept by it. Mindfulness practices teach us to enter this space more fully, to notice the flicker before the flame, to catch the tension before the reaction, to see the craving before the reach. This is not about controlling everything. It's about being present enough to choose your relationship with what's arising. The brain loves prediction. It is a forecasting machine, constantly modeling what comes next. But when you begin to see these models in action, the decisions being shaped before they're born, you step into a new kind of awareness. One that is soft, steady, observant. One that watches not just the decision, but the decision becoming. So next time you act or react, pause, even briefly, not to stop the current, but to feel its temperature, to ask, where is this coming from? What has already begun inside me? Because you are not just the thinker of thoughts, you are the listener of signals, the interpreter of impulses, and in the space before the decision, there is wisdom waiting ancient, subtle, and entirely your own. You've been breathing through layers of silence, through signals that slip beneath words, an unseen choreography of muscles, neurons, and emotion. And now, as we near the end of this quiet journey, something gentle lingers, the awareness that beneath everything you do, everything you feel, there is an ocean of knowing, deep, still, alive. Human behavior is often thought of as noise, chaotic, irrational, reactive. But it isn't. It is pattern and poetry. It is rhythm and repetition. What seems random is often meaningful. What feels spontaneous is frequently rehearsed, not by thought, but by the body, by the subconscious, by the echoes of thousands of moments that came before this one. We've explored 24 tides of that inner ocean, a breath before thought, a gaze that lingers, the tilt of a head, a sigh, a shiver, a laugh, each one a ripple from the mind's deeper layers. Movements made not in performance, but in truth. And though you may not have noticed them before, they've always been there, whispering, guiding, revealing. You are not separate from your subconscious. It is not some strange, hidden force buried inside you. It is you, the older part, the quieter self, the self that listens before it speaks, that feels before it names, that chooses before it decides. And it wants to help you. Your subconscious is not working against you. It's not a saboteur, nor a trap. It is your earliest protection, your oldest intelligence. It keeps you breathing in your sleep. It pulls your hand away from heat. It tugs your gaze toward danger and toward love. It tries, always, to keep you safe. Sometimes it gets tangled. Sometimes it repeats old stories. But always, it is trying to understand. And now, you're beginning to understand it too. To see the twitch before the emotion, the step before the desire, the glance before the thought, you're beginning to notice, and in noticing, you are becoming fluent in your own quiet language. You may find that, moving forward, you pause more often. You feel the way your fingers fidget when you're uncertain. You sense the shift in your breath when someone walks into a room. You observe how your posture changes when you speak to different people, how your tone softens, how your eyes avert or hold. And instead of rushing to explain it away, you might simply listen. Because awareness is not interruption. It is invitation. An invitation to treat yourself not as a puzzle to solve, but as a story to read, slowly, a layered, living manuscript still being written by breath, heartbeat, and blink. And when you offer this kind of presence to yourself, something beautiful happens. You begin to offer it to others. You start to see their micro-expressions, their half steps forward and back, their quiet longings leaking through the way they stand, the way they hesitate before answering. You begin to speak the language of the hidden, and with it comes compassion. Everyone is carrying oceans beneath their skin. Some hide it with smiles, some with silence, some with sharpness. But the water is there, deep, ancient, moved by invisible moons. And sometimes, all it takes is stillness or kindness to feel the tide begin to shift. So, as you settle now perhaps into sleep, perhaps into reflection, carry this with you. You are not just the thoughts in your head. You are the signals your body sends, the dreams you carry without remembering, the feelings that arrive unannounced, the instincts that pull you forward, the breath you didn't know you were holding. You are a mystery, but not an accident. You are a signal sent from something older than words, and every blink, every step, every sigh is part of the story you've always been telling. Softly, quietly, truly, thank you for walking this long, slow path with me. No rush, no noise, just the gentle unfolding of what was always there. good night, or good morning. Wherever you are, may you walk through your world a little more aware of the oceans beneath it.